This is video 3 of the Climate Crime Project, which is an investigation into global warming and climate change that proves conclusively that this is the worst ever crime against humanity and the crime of all time. This video covers the 2°C policy. The evidence from the entire project is totally restricted to official government documents. In this video we start to look at global average temperature increases. And we start with the long-standing, famous, that should be infamous 2°C policy for global average temperature limit, which has clearly been adopted as a target up to present. The 2°C target is itself the worst ever crime against humanity. Today's global average temperature increase from pre-industrial is 0.8°C. It's obvious that today's global climate change resulting from this temperature is past dangerous. There's been a number of major climate change disasters around the world already. So from now on there is no such thing as climate safety. We are from now on into a dangerous global climate change situation, and there's no going back. Therefore all further increases in temperature are disastrous to catastrophically dangerous. The temperature of 0.8 means that the temperature increase is predetermined to be at least 1.6°C, and as we'll see from the further evidence, 1.6°C and above is catastrophically dangerous for the huge numbers of climate change vulnerable populations. So the crime of all time is changing the planet's climate, which does the following, and this has been shown from the UNFCCC evidence. It decreases water security, decreases food security, it decreases health security, it decreases civil security. This makes global climate change the crime of all time with respect to huge populations of the most climate change vulnerable, but also this applies to all future generations. The 2°C originates as a policy compromise from the European Union, and this is a quote taken from the climate change site of I took it this year in 2010. It says the EU 2°C climate policy target adopted in 1996. This target goes back to 1996. So much science has been presented, so many impacts have been presented, coming so much earlier and faster than were expected. What EU says, and they're still saying, is that this is the level that scientists say will avoid the worst consequences. So this keeps on being repeated and repeated. The question, of course, is the worst consequences for who? And this same document tells us. It says, avoid the worst consequences. But even below this level, climate change will have significant impacts. This is the same EU document. Many poor developing countries are among the most vulnerable to climate change, but also have the least resources to cope with it. In fact, we can go all the way back to 1990 to show that governments knew even back then that 2°C increase was too dangerous, and at that time that they considered a 1°C temperature increase was the limit for safety. This is a 1990 document from the Advisory Group to the United Nations on Greenhouse Gases, and it's an analysis of targets and indicators for climate change. This was the precursor to the IPCC. What this document says is that increases beyond this 1°C limit may elicit rapid, unpredictable and non-linear responses that could lead to extensive ecosystem damage. Extensive ecosystem damage will reduce the food security of indigenous peoples around the world. 2°C, they said, was too dangerous. An increase above pre-industrial of this amount entails unacceptably high ecosystem and societal risks. 2°C, they said, we must expect that in many places in the world there will be a crisis in the world food supply and ecosystems, and the corresponding disruption of socio-economic systems and a loss of several islands. All the evidence ever since 1990 has just served to prove that this is absolutely correct. This is an EU document. The document is called the 2C Target, and it's a scientific assessment reported in 2008 to the EU of the EU 2C target. This document is not saying that there is a risk, or not saying that these things might happen. The document's being honest in saying that these are events that now will happen from sticking to the 2°C target. Here's a statement on the official EU position on global climate change in the period between 1900 and 2008, and this is 2004. A statement from a council meeting in Luxembourg in October 2004 saying that 2°C was not safe recognizes that 2°C would already imply significant impacts on ecosystems and water resources. So here we have a continuous, definite trail of evidence from formal documents of industrialized nations proving that they knew from 1990 right up to the present time, with the 2008 EU report, that 2°C was definitely far too dangerous, and to the most climate change vulnerable populations catastrophically dangerous, because they would be already losing their water and losing their food supplies, and in addition, of course, far too dangerous for small island states. Well, today, today we are, from the point of view of all future generations, humanity, and all life on Earth for that matter, we are already at a committed temperature increase of 1.6°C. Clearly then, the 2°C target is the most damning evidence of the perpetration of the greatest crime ever against humanity. The 2°C target was adhered to right the way up to 2009 at the Copenhagen Climate Conference, despite the fact that over all of these years the science had been consistent. It was very clear, as I'll show you in the next video, that 2°C was totally catastrophic for the most climate change vulnerable populations, with regard to water, food, health, and to the small island states also. I'll also show the documented, thoroughly and comprehensively documented evidence that these industrialized nations had been well aware of, because these are their own formal documents, that the 1990 opinion that 1°C was the only acceptable limit to allow the global temperature to increase to has been correct all along. The result of the EU sticking to this insane 2°C target affects us, and it affects all future generations, because as a result of it, today we are stuck with a committed global temperature increase of 1.6°C. The temperature will rise by more than 1.6°C because there is no agreement, that being double today's temperature increase of 0.8°C, and that lasting for more than 1,000 years. The next video moves on to the 2007 assessment of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which shows the conclusive evidence of what we've been saying in this video about 1°C, 1.6°C, and 2°C. And the IPCC has never said that 2°C is safe.